everybody, welcome to another month of Vine Path. Vine Path is a wine club put on through Baco's Wine and Cheese in Back Bay in Boston, Massachusetts. My name is Mariana, I am the wine buyer there, and every month we pick a topic or a theme in the world of wine and explore it. This month, in lieu of the holiday season and December, I channeled my inner Oprah. Around this time, she would always do an episode on her favorite things, and so I thought it would be appropriate to do some of my favorite styles of wine. It would pretty much be impossible for me to have a list of my favorite wines without having a sparkling wine on that. First up, Los Bermejos, Listán Negro, Rosado, Brut Nature. I've been a huge fan of the winery Los Bermejos for the past few years. In fact, this is not the first time one of their wines has been in Vine Path. I just find them to be very pure, interesting. They come from volcanic soil, which I'm a big fan of. But it was actually this wine that really drew me to the winery. Last year, this winery made an appearance in the Island Wines episode with their Listán Negro, which is a grape also known as in the Americas as País. It originates from the Canary Islands, and in this case, it's made as a rosé. There's a little bit of a grape called Malvasia volcanica. The Malvasia family is pretty large. This is a clone of it. It's just 10%. Just enough to add kind of a honey, deep fruitiness to balance all that light smoky minerality. I've had this wine throughout the years, and I think this is quite a ripe vintage because I am getting a lot more fruit than I'm used to. There's a little orange marmalade, there's some rose petal. The importer actually pointed out to me that the history of the wines in Canary Islands is so vast. It was even referenced by William Shakespeare in his play Twelfth Night, which came out in 1602. They reference a cup of Canary. Now, the Canary Islands has a really interesting history with wine. In the 1700s, it was struck by a huge volcano explosion, which caused a lot of devastation. But years later, the island was rebuilt. It was an island already tied with a lot of farming. And so even through all that ash that spread through the island, they realized that if they dug a little deep, they would get to the very fertile soil of the land. And so to this day, if anything, they use the ash to their advantage. So there's a lot of viticulture on this island. They look like big craters. Looks a little bit like you're on a different planet, but it's amazing how they've made it work. The vines are planted in craters that are all spread out. They're 3 meters deep, and the vine takes advantage of all the fertile land underneath. But then that volcanic soil and that ash actually is really good for water retention to keep the vine hydrated throughout the year. It is a very hot climate. Harvesting happens in July, which is way earlier than most parts of the world. And then it's an area that has a lot of maritime influence. There's a lot of wind. Also why they build the vines in craters, and some even have little walls of stone surrounding the vines so that the wind doesn't damage them. Most of the viticulture in this area is organic or biodynamic, as Los Bermejos is. And Ignacio Valdera is the winemaker and owner of this winery. And I think wines from the Canary Island have survived the test of time. Because talk about pivoting, they have a volcanic explosion that could have ended viticulture in the island of Lanzarote, but instead they learned how to make it work for them, and if anything, make it what it is. I hear nothing but wonderful things of people that have visited Lanzarote. I'm definitely interested. I would pair this wine with meze spread, so anything from little tinned fish, olives, hummus. I'm thinking just Mediterranean dips and spreads. Even though this wine is quite fruity, the light smoke, the light savoriness of it just make it so thirst quenching and satisfying. Next on my list are wines that don't necessarily fit in a specific category, so I chose a Cerro de Abruzzo. We're drinking the 2021 Vasche from Caprera, and this wine is from Abruzzo, Italy, specifically that province of Pietranico. If you've ever had a Cerro de Abruzzo, typical of this area, it's not quite a light red, it's not quite a rosé, it's somewhere in between. And so when I'm not sure what I'm in the mood for, something like this makes me really happy, especially when I'm in a group that doesn't really know what they want to drink. A wine like this is a treat. Now, this winery was started by friends Alfonso and Luca, both from Abruzzo. Both had been working in the wine industry more on the commercial end of things and decided that they wanted to make their own wine. And they're actually not originally from this province, but when they stumbled upon the land and the vineyard, they fell in love. There's a lot of history here. In fact, the name of this wine, Vasche, refers to these deep rock basins that you can find in this area. These basins have been proven to be from the Middle Ages. Ancient Greeks that settled in southern Italy used them for wine production, for the crushing of the grapes. You can still see these basins. Though this wine wasn't made in those basins, the wine is an ode to the history of winemaking in this province. I actually got to taste this wine with Luca himself a few weeks ago, and I have to say, it has changed since then. If you notice, when you first open this wine, it's slightly effervescent. That means when they bottled it, there was just an ever so slight residual sugar. And when bottled, it kept fermenting just a little, so there's a little spritz here. It was kind of a surprise to me. I don't remember it being this way, but it's really pleasant nonetheless. It's definitely not a wine flaw. Just a testament to how wine keeps evolving in the bottle. The term Cerro di Abruzzo comes from the word Cerro, coming from the word for cherry. The Montepulciano grape is quite little berries, and when vinified like this, I totally get notes, pops of candied cherry, fresh strawberry, really pleasantly tart. You should drink this with a chill on it. And I was thinking the other day about what wine to pair with the famous Italian-American meal, the Feast of the Seven Fishes. You can still have it with the lighter seafood courses, but it still has enough structure and oomph to go with the heavier fish courses. So that's what I would pair this with. Next on my list of favorite things are really interesting whites from really interesting places. This is from the winery Bodegas Cerro Chapeu. This is their line 1752 Gran Tradición, and it's a white blend of Petit Manseng and Viognier. Though Viognier is a little more well known, Petit Manseng is not. It is a grape that originates from southwestern France. In that area you'll see a lot of like fun, fruity, everyday whites that I actually really enjoy, especially for bargain whites that are still really good. This is being planted in Uruguay. The winery Bodega Cerro Chapeu is in the area of Rivera, which is right on the border between Brazil and Uruguay. It borders Brazil's Campania region. This is a family-run winery, although they do have a team of a lot of young, exciting talent. But the family is the Carrao family, which their winemaking history dates back to the 1700s in the Catalonian region. So they emigrated to Uruguay and continued making wine. Most of the plantings of this winery were from 1975 from Kiko Carrao, but now his son Francisco is the main winemaker along with his wife and kids. There's a lot of history here. I've heard that the grape Petit Manseng is actually genetically related to another very popular grape in Uruguay, Tannat. I've yet to find specific evidence. I'm still researching that fact, but either way, they both originate from southwestern France that really borders that northeastern Spain area that straddles the Basque region that spreads almost into Catalonia. I find it very interesting that the reason Tannat is so huge in Uruguay is because in the 1800s, Pascual Arriague, who was a man of the Basque region, what we consider today the French side, settled in Uruguay in the 1830s and eventually got into viticulture and eventually got some cuttings of a grape from where he was from, and it turned out to be Tannat. To this day, Tannat is way more popular and well known and tied to Uruguay than it is with France, even though it's still very much used in southwestern France winemaking. It makes really deep, rustic, bold wines. Uruguay has kind of reclaimed it, very similar to how Argentina has done that with the French grape Malbec. But back to Petit Manseng, I find it to be the opposite of a delicate grape. It has grit and can be bold but still has fruit and acidity, and in this case it has a little new oak, which I know is not for everybody. I think in moderation it can be great. I get on the nose some like lemon, but not fresh lemons that have been cut and have been sitting out for a bit. There's a waxiness, there's a brininess that reminds me of seaweed, there's a cheesiness that reminds me of sheep cheese, and on the palate I get a lot of canned pineapple, some raw almonds, a little salinity. I got to try this wine with Francisco's daughter Pia, who was out here in Boston promoting wines of Uruguay in general, but specifically her winery. And I just get a lot of sense of pride from this family, but pride of having wine that has a lot of history but its own unique expression. Because of the weight of this wine, I would actually pair this with fondue. I think it would be really fun. I think the touch of fruit would bring out the sharpness in the cheeses, in the Alpine style cheeses, but its body would match up to the creaminess of a fondue. And I've mentioned this before, when I was first starting to get into wine, the grape that really took me in was Cab Franc, and I've been a fan of this Chinon for a long time, so we're drinking Domaine Jaulin Plaisantin's Les Hauts et les Bas. Completely butchering that name, but the name comes from the highlands and the lowlands, because This is 100% Cabernet Franc from 2 different sites, highlands and lowlands, and together they make a really fun combination. The highlands are filled with flinty clay, which gives the wine structure, and the lowlands have gravel, which gives the wine a lush finesse. This winery was started by 2 winemaker friends, Sebastian and Yves. And Sebastian had been a vineyard owner, and Yves had been making wine all over the world, but they wanted to do their own passion project and make authentic wines of Chinon. For those not familiar, Chinon is from the central part of the Loire Valley. It's actually the Loire Valley's biggest producer of red wine by volume, and it sits in a key place that still gets a little bit of the maritime influence that really tempers the climate, because we're starting to get into a little more harsh continental climate conditions, and so it's ideal for a grape like Cabernet Franc. Cabernet Franc in cooler climates tends to exhibit a lot of tart red fruit, a lot of herbaceousness. It's very tied to green bell pepper notes. That is due to a term called methoxypyrazines. They call them pyrazines for short, and that's a compound found in a lot of different things that smells very herbaceous, like bell peppers. As soon as the grape gets more sunlight and it's more warmth, that actually tends to go away. So Cabernet Franc from warmer sites, such as in California, it's grown a lot in Argentina, that tends to go away. I definitely get a little herbaceous character in this wine, but over the years, I feel like we're starting to see less of that in Cabernet Franc. This definitely has to do with global warming and the fact that all the sites are just getting a little warmer. This wine smells like red raspberry, dusting of cocoa powder, a lot of violets. We were drinking this wine over the course of a few days, and the more it's open, the more the floral character comes out, and it goes from violets to rose petals. Tannins are present, but don't make themselves the main part of this wine. This wine is lush and purple and a little spicy. I would drink this with a heavier rustic dish like a cassoulet. I think it would be beautiful because it goes with meat, but it goes with beans as well. I would say it's the ultimate bistro wine. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed some of my favorite styles of wine. These are ones that I gravitate towards on a typical day. I do tend to go with interesting, rustic, authentic wines. I hope you guys enjoy them too, and I wish everyone a very happy holiday season and end of the year. Looking forward to what 2024 will bring to us all. If you stay with VinePath, a lot more fun wines we'll be tasting, many more topics uncovered. Thank you so much, and I wish you all special wine in your glass, and more importantly, special loved ones to share it with. Cheers.